My apologies.
That's all right.
That's like the Wizard of Oz.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the September 13th Transit Technical Advisory Committee. Can everybody hear me okay? So it looks like we do not have a quorum in the room, but if the members who are present would like to continue with the meeting and not take any action items, but just the discussion items, then I can take a vote to do that. A vote of those in the room.
So moved. Let's continue.
Yeah.
All right, great. Then let's carry on as a meeting of the whole. Let's go ahead and start off with introductions. Starting in the room. I'm Dana Trey with SCTA, and then I'll pass it off to my right.
All right, Jacob Brown with Golden Gate Transit. David Davenport is usually here representing us, but I'm filling in for him this morning because he had to be at another meeting.
I'm Rachel Eat with Center of the City Bus.
Stephen Schmitz with Sonoma County Transit.
Chris Barney with SCTA.
We have Drew Nichols over there with SCTA. And then let's turn it to online. Why don't we start with SCTA staff, since I see you all with your cameras on.
I'm Shauna Gauze with Sonoma County Transportation Authority.
Ross Clendenin, SCTA or CPA.
Catherine Stubbs, SCTA.
Suzanne Smith, SCTA, RCPA.
All right, and I can't see that far, but I think there's just a few more of you. So if you want to just speak up and introduce yourself if you're on the Zoom.
Hi, this is Orlando Ramirez with Caltrans.
Joey Andrew with Smart.
This is Finn Wirtz with Smart.
This is Tim Payne with Nelson Nygaard Consulting Associates.
All right, anyone else? Okay, let's go ahead and get started. The next item is public comment on items not on the agenda. Do we have any public wishing to comment? All right, here none, let's go ahead and move on to approval of the meeting notes. We did not have an August meeting, so the notes in your agenda packet are from July 12th. Does anyone have any comments or corrections?
We can't.
Oh, you're right.
Yeah, we can't
Okay.
have an action item on.
Thank you for that reminder. So we will bring these notes back to our meeting next month. And so assuming we have a quorum, we could approve them at that point. All right, so item number 4, under regional funding, we have the Go Sonoma Act draft policies and project information sheets for the strategic implementation plan. This is an informational item, and in your agenda packet is the item that was taken to the technical advisory committee, which the transit TAC is on the technical advisory committee, so you may not have all been at that meeting, but should have received this in the agenda packet previously. And we wanted to make sure that you had a chance to review it. And I'll turn it over to Shauna if you have anything else to add to that.
Thanks, Dana. Just in the agenda packet, so there's a PowerPoint presentation that was presented to the TAC, and it draws your attention to the changes or differences between what was in the Measure M strategic implementation plan and what will be in the Go Sonoma strategic implementation plan. They are a lot the same. So there's a lot of the same policies that will carry forward, but there are some new programs. So there are some new policies, and You know, it's laid out very much the same that Measure M is. There's an executive summary and a background section, and then our strategic approach is chapter 3. Chapter 4 is our policies and procedures, and chapter 5 is the financial plan and cash flow, and then the chapter 6 is project information sheets. Now in Go Sonoma, we don't have set projects. We have done a call for projects, so that section will grow as Go Sonoma grows, and because it's competitive, we will select projects that will then be included every time we update the strategic plan. And then there are the appendices, and so I would like to draw your attention to the templates for the annual reporting letters, which are very much the same, but they will be you know, this is your opportunity to look them over and give us any comments that you have. There are also some new policies in regard to how Go Sonoma will be implemented. So those sections will the sections in chapter 3 that will be different are the annual apportionment programs. Because in Go Sonoma Transit, there's up to 2% of the program apportionments will be available for the free fare programs on a reimbursement basis. And 3% of the program is available to develop first and last mile programs that will be managed by SCTA. And so you can see it in your agenda packet, but that's generally where the changes are that concern you guys the most. And I would take any questions if there are any. Otherwise, that concludes my report.
Shauna, I just have a quick question, and I apologize because I missed the strategic plan, implementation plan when it came through the TAC, and so this is on me. But for the new programs, the 2% for free fares and the 3% for first and last mile, does the plan lay out kind of what the process will be like? Will there be a call for projects, or how did those projects get identified? Is that part of the plan, and can you speak to that?
Sure, and I will defer to Dana since we're calling it Dana's money. It's not, but because it falls under Dana's purview.
Okay.
So the free fare program, or the first and last mile program, will be sort of a off the top out of the whole program, and then the remainder, each of the jurisdictions, each of the agencies. Operators, there we go, that's the one. Each of the operators have the ability to invoice for up to 2% of their apportionment for these free fare programs. So it's reimbursed, but you can use up to 2% of Go Sonoma. That doesn't limit you. Of course, you can spend as much money as you want on free fares, but that's what's available in Go Sonoma. And how we implement that, how that works, is still to be determined. We're just sort of trying to define it in the policies and procedures right now. So any comments, or what, you know, if you want to provide us with input on how that should happen, or, you know, if you think one way would be better than another, we're happy to take suggestions. We are working out the details of implementation still. Does that help?
Yeah, that's really helpful. And I think that the reason I was asking the question, you know, around the free fares program in particular, you know, we have some successful programs up and running now. We know that probably there's not enough revenue coming through Go Sonoma to sustain all those programs. So I think it may be useful to have a collective conversation about sort of what the best use of those funds are, because they're limited, right? But so I guess it would just be, my only comment would be, you know, I think that it will be helpful to continue to have those multi-operator conversations around those funds going forward, as we've been doing. I think that'd be beneficial for everyone.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, I would just say that, you know, in this draft strategic implementation plan, there's not a lot more information on those programs than there is in the expenditure plan. So really it's saying that those details are to be developed. And that is something that we intend to work on with the transit operators over the next year or two.
Great.
Any other questions or comments? All right, thank you. Thank you, Shauna.
Sure.
The next item is 4.2, Measure M presentation to the Citizens Advisory Committee on September 25th. This is really just a reminder that the transit operators are scheduled to present to the Citizens Advisory Committee the week after next. That is a 4 p.m. meeting. And the schedule for all of the presentations over the year is included in the agenda packet. I think I mentioned this to some of the transit operators earlier, but it'd probably be good to say it again that there's members of the CAC that have been interested in a couple of issues that are kind of unrelated to what, this presentation is really about Measure M expenditures. But there's also been some interest in what's going on with Proterra, as well as transit integration. So I just wanted to give you a heads up that there may be questions about those two things. We do intend to bring a presentation on the transit integration work we've been doing to the CAC. I don't think we're gonna be able to fit it into the CAC schedule until January. So we can definitely, let the members know at that meeting that presentation, we are intending to do a full presentation on that, but there may be questions that come up.
Shauna, any guidelines for the length of the presentation? I think it's usually like 10 to 15, something like that.
Yeah, per operator, it usually ends up taking a full hour for everybody to speak. So if we could limit it to exactly 10 minutes, you sort of plan on 10 minutes of presentation and 5 minutes of questions. It usually extends a little bit in either direction. But that would be the general idea. Please feel free to have PowerPoint or and you're welcome to be in the room or to present on Zoom. It's not required to be there in person in order to do the presentation. So whatever works best for you. Just let us know ahead of time if you won't be there in person so that Drew has your presentations.
All right, let's go ahead and move on to item number 5. The Complete Streets checklist. So there are 2 Complete Streets checklists in your agenda packet. I don't believe either of these really impact transit, but to do our due diligence, we are bringing to this committee. I'm going to turn it over to David to talk a little bit about these projects and what we would request of transit.
Sure, thanks, Dana. So the first Complete Streets checklist is for the State Route 121 8th Street East project. This is an intersection improvement project in the eastern part of the county. There is no existing transit service in that area other than the San Joaquin's Route 7 passes through that area on its way to Napa, but that's the only transit service in that area. We've been working closely with Caltrans, the county, and county regional parks on that project to accommodate all the planned bicycle and pedestrian improvements in that area that would connect the Sonoma Shelville Trail to the Bay Trail. So that project hopefully is pretty straightforward, and there's a lot of information provided, including draft conceptual plans in your packet. The second project is really has no impact whatsoever on transit. It's landscaping on the 101 corridor. The only possible impact is maybe some temporary disruption during construction, if there is any lane closures that are needed, but that one is just doing required mitigation planting on 101 between Cotati and Windsor. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions you have. I think similar to our previous Complete Street checklist that we did before, we'll probably want to circulate a letter from all the operators to sign off to say you've reviewed and you have no comments or concerns on the projects. prior to us going to the countywide bicycle pedestrian advisory committee on the 26th, I believe, to get their comments on that checklist. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions that you have.
Yeah.
Thanks for that presentation. Have you reached out to Amtrak to see if possibly in the future they may want to serve that area?
I haven't talked with Dan Levitt, the San Keens directly. I know SMART has an east-west conceptual plan that they've developed, and we have been working with them closely throughout the PID process for the 121 East A Street East project. The project wouldn't preclude having a station at Shelville in the future. And I'm guessing the station, based on the curvature of the track, would have to be south of 121. But we have been working closely with Zoe and Joanne and Bill Gamlin so that they're aware of the project. And if the San Keens or Capital Corps became an operator on that corridor, we're not sure. I think that's a lot of discussions that we had to have in the next 2 years.
Okay, I was also asking about the bus throughway service, if that was going to serve the roundabout area, and if they might want to review that project for potential turnout if they're going to serve this. There's a park and ride lot there, right?
There is not an existing park and ride lot.
Oh, there's not. Okay.
Yeah, it's just the existing Smart Depot building where they have their freight service operates out of there. We did get some comments early on from regional parks that they would like to have a trailhead there, but given the existing smart operations, that might not be possible within the project footprint.
I think I'm at the wrong intersection. I think I'm at Arnold and yeah, I have the wrong location. Okay, sorry. Thank you.
No problem.
All right.
So who should we send the email to?
So I think Dana and I will follow up with you all in the email so that we can craft a joint letter. And if you have any comments, you can send them directly to me.
Okay.
Yeah, and maybe David, you can provide some clarification on the process. I mean, my understanding is that if there's transit service or stops within the project areas, then we would request an email saying that you've reviewed it. So, I mean, I guess the landscaping project is technically Golden Gate Transit operates in that area, right?
Yeah, I think David was saying we have park and ride lots along the Roanoke Park Expressway, but they're only currently filling to about a third full. So we didn't anticipate any impacts.
Okay.
And then that particular location, the only planting we're looking at would be directly between the edge of the parking lot and the freeway right away. So right up against that last row of parking. So I don't think any disruption would probably be very minimal if we do any planting there.
Okay, so if we need to send an email, our planning department can.
Okay.
Just let us know who to direct it to.
Great. So yeah, I think Dave and I will coordinate and we'll reach out to you all, and then you could just respond to the email.
Okay.
Great. Thank you. Anything else on the Complete Streets checklist? All right, let's move on to item number 6, which is MTC's transit oriented communities policy. They are requesting feedback from agency staff on the final draft administrative guidance for this policy as it will relate to OBAG 4. Turn over to Chris.
Yeah, thanks, Dana. And I just wanted to provide a little bit of an update on the TOC policy and what's included in there and what the general requirements will be and you know what the potential impacts could be. So there's been a lot of activity associated with this over the last 6 months or so. MTC's been out to talk to our planning directors multiple times about the policy. It's evolved a little bit. And the TOC policy is basically an evolution of the old TOD policy that's been around since 2005, if you remember that. So there's some ties to funding and everything like that. And as Dana said, OBAG 4 will decisions about Quebec for, and MTC has also indicated other discretionary funding sources could be tied to this policy. So basically, the goals of the program are to increase housing supply and density, and especially affordable housing around transit stations. They've basically subdivided things into different tiers in the region. In Sonoma County, we're in the 4th tier. So basically all of these requirements are applying around the smart stations in Sonoma County, so fixed route rail. As part of the policy, they're also prioritizing connections within and to and from transit-rich areas, especially to equity priority communities. So that's also a focus of the program. Here in Sonoma County, it applies to a half mile of smart existing or planned smart stations. So quite a bit of coverage here in Sonoma County, and planned as well is a focus of the program. So important to consider that as well. And as far as funding, they've indicated that they'd like to have everything in place by 2026. So have jurisdictions demonstrate that they're complying with the policy by 2026 to be able to access these funds. And they haven't said how that'll play out yet. It could be a weight in some scoring program or a checklist or something like that. So the actual requirements are pretty dense. So I encourage you, if you're interested in those, to take a look at the guidance document. It's about 60, 70, or 80 pages long. So there's information in there about densities, parking requirements, and things like that. So the 4 distinct categories of compliance that jurisdictions will need to demonstrate compliance with include minimum residential and commercial densities for new development. So excluding existing conditions in the station areas and looking at future zoning allowances, demonstrating that affordable housing production, preservation, and displacement policies are in place for those areas, having parking management policies in place for those areas, and then also demonstrating that complete streets is prioritized in those areas, that there's a focus on transit station access, and in their recent communications, it sounds like they'll probably be requiring some sort of gap analysis for access to stations. So a lot of very detailed tables and requirements and calculations and formulas actually in the guidance. So I'm digging through those, so I hope to be kind of a little more up to speed as things progress. But especially for SMART, I really encourage you to dig into some of those formulas and make sure you at least have some familiarity, because they've also indicated that for transit extension projects, and SMART is on that list, MTC is going to be looking for commitment letters from those jurisdictions for those expansion projects that indicate that the jurisdictions are, if they aren't already complying, that they're planning on complying and moving in that direction. So talking about the technical way that jurisdictions will submit their compliance, there's going to be a checklist, which hasn't been developed yet. There'll be some sort of form, and they'll be looking for a resolution either from the city council or board of supervisors, depending on where the station is. So that's where things are at right now. MTC staff presented at the joint ABAG and MTC committee last Wednesday. So if you want to get kind of an overview of how they're seeing the program, I'd encourage you to watch that presentation. And then we'll be engaging with our planning directors in the next month or so. So if you're interested in that discussion, Emily, I'd invite you to maybe be part of that. MTC will be having a discussion in that venue as well. So that's where things are at right now. So there'll be some, analysis that's going to be required, and, filling out forms and, taking it to the councils and decision-making bodies. And, I think explaining the policy will be one portion of that, and then getting the resolutions together will be another piece. So, yeah, that's where things are at right now. So as things develop, I'll bring more information, but yeah, discussions are happening with the planning departments and planning directors. You know, they'll be needing to actually do a lot of this analysis and work. But just wanted to let you all know about the requirements and how it may impact future funding streams, and maybe check in with the planners too and make sure they're they're paying attention to
There's
how
a
this
lot.
might impact. There's, yeah, and it's dense too, right?
Deferred then.
There are formulas and detailed tables and everything in there.
And as you're saying, just the requirements around the station access and circulation, like the specific analyses that you need to do to identify and prioritize improvements.
Yeah.
Okay.
So there's a little bit of time, like they're looking at getting things from jurisdictions by 2026, but that'll be here very soon. Next week. Yeah. But yeah, there's a lot of information out there. Let me know if you have any questions. I'm trying to kind of work through and wrap my head around what the requirements are. So happy to help try and interpret some of that. Yeah, yeah, that's where things are at now. I'll let you know if I hear more. Yeah.
Yeah, we definitely have spent some time with this policy. It's long and complicated. I sat in on several meetings and then some of the council members came out with all the planning directors. Yeah, SMART's not in the business of telling the cities what density that they build, you know, we're in the business of providing fixed route rail so that density can certainly, you know, thrive and happen.
Yeah.
And that is happening. But yeah, I initially thought the policy was cities, you may not have funding, you not build those density, but it's more.
Yeah.
You know, it's fixed route rail may not be built where the density does not exist. So there's definitely a chicken and egg thing going on here that we need to sort through.
Yeah.
Yeah, more to come on that.
Definitely.
I'm glad you're reading the next page. Summarize it for us.
Just need to try and
And I'm just,
remember.
we've also been curious, like, who's doing all this analysis, right? I mean, the burden is on whom to do the analysis. Because it's a lot of work, and it's coming, you know, from regional agency, so.
MTC is you know, expressed some desire to provide some support in these areas. So they could be providing some technical assistance through one of their benches to help get this information together. And, you know, it could involve not just compiling the information, you know, compiling information based on current zoning codes and everything in the areas. But things may need to change, right? Like determining what needs to change and helping usher that through, right? So yeah, there's a significant amount of work that could be involved.
Yeah.
For sure.
And do you know if it's an average of densities throughout the corridor, or if it's, the old one was an average? Do you have any idea?
I think this is each jurisdiction or each
City,
station.
city.
I think it's city. Yeah, I'll double check on that. Yeah, it used to be corridor. The TOD policy was a corridor average, right? This does apply just to new development, so you don't have to, you know, if it's lower density, the existing development is lower density, that's not part of the mix. So it's really focused on that, you know, future zoning and policy direction.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I mean. The Marin County Planning Directors for certain. We're gonna, not thank you. Right? But yeah, it's sort of. It's built. So Sonoma County is really, it's at stake.
and their public works departments may have different opinions about that, right? Because it's tied to, it's gonna be tied to OVAC funding and other funding
Yeah,
sources.
totally.
So it could make it difficult for them to access those funds
Absolutely.
for other projects.
Sure.
So, yeah, there's definitely an incentive to do the analysis.
Yeah,
Get something.
and you know, and I actually shouldn't make like, obviously there are cities that are trying to comply with this, right?
Yeah.
But not all. There are reasons for doing it.
Lots of reading if you want to dig in. Maybe. Sure.
I think you just did.
I'll see what I can do. 1 or 2 pages.
All right, thanks, Chris.
Yeah.
The next item is the MTC Transit 2050 plus updates. I think that our 2 members that are on the committee for that plan at MTC are not here today, but if anybody has any information they could share, that would be great.
You know, David was on paternity leave, so he hadn't been to any meetings since July. But I believe the next meeting is tomorrow,
Okay,
and we'll be in attendance there, so
okay.
maybe we'll have an update next month.
So we'll hear some more next month. Great, thank you. All right, let's move on to transit operator updates. Steven, you want to start with an update on Sonoma County Transit?
Sure, thank you. We're happy to report that our ridership is continuing to go up, and a lot of it is student ridership. So we just had schedule changes on August 13th, and we really started to put some new trips in and even some new routes for some of the local schools in the county, and we're seeing some fruit from that. So we're happy to report that. We hope that trend continues. Like I mentioned, we had schedule changes on August 13th. So far, so good with those. We have a couple new trips that we provided from the Sonoma Valley area that feed into Sonoma State and Credo High School over there. So that's kind of unique for us. It's a long trip. It involves 3 different routes, but it's no transfers. And so that was what we wanted to provide for the students going to Credo High School and Sonoma State from the Sonoma Valley area. And so far it's been really well received. So we're happy with that. Everybody knows about the Proterra bankruptcy. So we've had conversations with them, but really what it comes down to is what happens by the end of October if somebody steps up to buy them, or if they just start to liquidate. And so we're waiting, like everybody else is, to hear what they have to say by I think it was October 26th that they were going to get back to us all. So that's interesting. And just a side note, this is paratransit related, but for those of you who don't know, April Pearson has resigned as the director for Volunteer Wheels. She moved back east with her family, so we wished her luck. But Lindsay Dow, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing her last name correct. I should probably know that. But Lindsay is stepping up into that role, and so we're pleased to have her do that, and looking forward to working with her. That's about all I have for Sonoma County.
Okay, thanks. All right, whatever then.
Sure, just a few things for us. We're in the middle of our CAT AVL system transition, so we're switching from Avail over to GMB Synchromatics this month. So we're switching over about 2 buses a night. So gradually we're moving over. So the real-time information is pretty much in disarray for the riders for this month. So we've done a lot of messaging around that and supporting the riders as best we can. So far going pretty smoothly, and we should be done installing by the end of next week, and then we'll have a little bit of time to work out the kinks, and we promise the riders a go live date on October 2nd. So that's the goal, to be fully switched over with the new information for GMB up and running for the riders. We're also continuing to work on our new website in conjunction with Sonoma County Transit and Petaluma Transit through the integration work, so that we'll have a new website that is going to be harmonized with the other 2 local bus operators. We're super excited about it. It's looking really, really good. Big step forward for City Bus. Hopefully we'll have more to share on that soon. And then just a quick note that the council did approve Santa Rosa going to 50% subsidy on Clipper Start last night. So we're That's done to be effective January 1st, and that's in alignment also with Sonoma County and Petaluma Transit. We're all moving to 50% effective on the 1st. That's all I've got.
Great, thanks. Great. Petaluma.
Thank you. Jared Hall, sorry, I came in a few minutes late, transit manager, Petaluma Transit, anyone who doesn't know. So for July, our ridership is up 13% on the fixed route system, 10% on paratransit, so good news there. Last night at council, we approved the contract to change our CAD ABL system over to GMD, so that's a few months behind Santa Rosa. We did the same RFP on that a while ago, so looking forward to it. They also approved our ZEB zero emission bus transition plan that all the agencies have been doing recently. So that's good news. One of the big capital projects we're working on is electrification. So still continuing with design work for that, about 50% design for our needed yard improvements. Buying the dreaded switch gear at the moment is where we're currently at, which has a 60 to 70 week build time. So that's one of the things that many agencies unfortunately get caught up in with delays to electrify, is getting that piece of equipment. And then purchasing our first wave of buses in about a month or so, most likely new flyer buses. We did have a regional call, for what it's worth, about the ProTerra chapter 11 a week ago that MTC conducted with a dozen or 2 dozen or so agencies on the call to give updates on it, which is very helpful. There's a Petaluma Film Festival worth noting, the Better Cities Film Festival on September 20th and 28th. A lot of videos will be shown for that are urban planning related, active transportation, transit related. And so if you want to find out more info on that, you can go to urbanchat.org. So I'd encourage people to check that out. We've been doing a lot of school outreach overall. I'll let Maria talk more about the marketing side and all that. And then our senior transit planner position is open and posted. So if anyone knows anyone, I know it's hard to find great staff these days, but please send them our way. Anything else, Maria?
Just to add that we've been doing a lot of outreach to seniors. Recently, a lot of interest in learning more about transit. I think I spent the entire time switching my hat from Golden Gate, Sonoma County to Smart. So what do you want to learn? What do you want to learn? What do you want to learn? So again, we might want to continue that conversation about having somebody, you know, who takes on that role, but happy to do it. Just keep sending me your schedules. Getting just again increased ridership on youth from drivers are reporting that they're seeing a lot of students who they're used to seeing walking or now with the youth ride free getting on the bus. So that's phenomenal. Working a lot with the schools though to make sure that transportation goes smoothly because it's a little tricky. And then microtransit, we have formed our ad hoc and we're having our second meeting September 21st to discuss that progression and how we're going to handle which problem we're solving with microtransit in Petaluma.
I just want to comment as a parent of a student rider on Petaluma Transit who loves it. And she's got like 9 friends riding with her to and from school. And it's been like perfect. So thank you. Yeah.
Oh, thanks.
Many compliments. Great.
Always good to hear the feedback. It's always tricky, as everyone knows, like starting the school year.
Yeah.
New riders may have new drivers on it. There's always kind of first couple weeks of getting everything shaken out, but I appreciate it.
Oh, and congratulations to Lindsay. I did go out and say congratulations and make sure that Petaluma isn't doing anything to upset her scheduling a paratransit. I know what to do.
Keep her happy.
Yes, most definitely.
Okay, thank you. Golden Gate Transit.
Let's see, ridership is up 10% over 2022 in July, but still down 54% since 2019. So still quite a ways down. Ferry ridership down 49% over 2019 and up 4% compared to July 2022. So seeing some uptick over last year still. Some staff changes. Wanted to know, most of you probably already know, one of about 50 GM of our bus division has moved on. Her last day was Friday, August 4th. So Dennis is currently filling in for her while we seek to fill that position. Had service changes that took effect on September 10th. No changes in Sonoma County. And District is transitioning to the regional sign-up schedule. So the next bus service change will take effect on January 14th, 2024, not in December. Ferry will also shift to the January 15th effective date. So Monday instead of Sunday.
Close.
Yeah, right. One time.
Almost
But-
there.
It's I think it says because of differences in how work schedules are structured between the two operating systems, so. And that's it.
Right, thanks. Smart.
Are the rest of you also doing this January 14th/15th change date? Is that something that is happening? Yeah. Okay. Yeah, okay, we knew it was something in January. Colette was asking me when it was.
Oh.
Now you're telling me, January 14th. 14th/15th, okay. Let's see, oh, and I also had a happy 12-year-old customer come in transit. There's been ridership there. Smart ridership's been great, we've exceeded pre-COVID by 10% in August. I've been nervously watching the numbers as the summer ends, because we had a ton of youth on the train. All those midday and late morning trains were just packed with kids. And so far, we're holding steady. It looks like the kids have gone back to school, but the commuters are also back, and our commute peaks. I've seen a really big bump. That's good. We're doing a service change on October 2nd. And I'm planning to send you all the schedules, probably this afternoon, tomorrow. It's mostly weekend. The ferry is dramatically changing their weekend schedule. They're changing from 5 to 9 ferries each way. And 6 of those are going to be the fast ferries, as I call them, the fast ferries, the catamarans, which is 30-minute travel time instead of 60. So if you are taking that train to the ferry trip into the city, it really reduces your travel time. It's a really good improvement. Another thing they're doing, sorry, I'm just speaking on behalf of ferries now, it really affects their service. Another thing they're doing, which is great, is they're adding an two AM ferries back from the city on the weekend. I don't know if you've ever tried to stay in San Francisco for the weekend, if you've been very back, but you couldn't. Since pre-COVID, that hasn't existed, and now they're adding it back. So as a result of that, we are totally reorganizing our full weekend schedule and adding 2 trips on the weekend. So we're gonna have more weekend service. It's going from 12 to 14 trips. That's very exciting. Another thing that's happening is that the Starlighter is going to take a break for the winter. I know, but I think, it might be more of a summer phenomenon, and ridership was really good during the peak of the summer, but it's starting to taper off. And the ferry schedule changes meant that the last ferry from the city was no longer going to be meeting our last train, the Starlighter. And that's a big boost to that service. So with that connection breaking, we just decided to cut the Starlighter. But what we're doing is we're going to take our last regular weekday train and move it back half an hour to make it a little later. So if you'd like to go out to dinner, you still can. It just needs to be an early dinner, okay? Unless you go to Marin.
Yes,
If you go to Marin, you can eat late. If I go to Starks, you gotta make like a 5 p.m. reservation, okay? That's Starks. But Starks, the Starks dinner is like one of my planned parameters, scheduling. Like, what time do people need to go to dinner? So we're still gonna have evening service, but it's not gonna be just late. And that's happening on October 2nd. No other weekday changes. I don't really think I have anything else to report.
I also have to say that I have a student smart writer, so is also very thrilled. I'd be remiss if I didn't also say it's working great.
Thank you.
Just wanted that we have a quorum now.
Thank you. I was gonna come back to that. So if we could actually go back to. Actually, before I do that, was there any operators online that I can't see up there that had anything to add? Okay, let's go back to item number 3. When we got to that item earlier, we didn't have a quorum in the room, so now we do. If we could move back to item number 3 and take any comments or corrections or a motion.
Motion for approval?
I'll second.
Thank you. And then we'll go back down to other business comments or announcements. All right, well, thank you all. Quick and efficient meeting. We have our next board meeting on October 9th. And our next Transit TAC meeting on the 11th of October. So thank you all for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So